So we invite to the stage Alex Irwin Hunt, Global Markets Editor, FDI Intelligence of the Financial Times UK, who will be the moderator of this session. Good to see you again. And he will be joined by this esteemed panel. Fabiano Corredor, Vice President of Marketing, Oxys, US and Costa Rica. Anupam Govil, Managing Partner, Avasant LLC and President, Avasense Inc., US and India. Yanni Epstein, Founding Chairman and CEO of ITEL Jamaica. We saw the sponsor a while ago. Thank you so very much, Yanni. Good to see you. And Leslie Lee Fook, who I have not seen in such a long time, Director AI Automation and Analytics, Incos Services Limited, Trinidad and Tobago. Lady and gentlemen, welcome to the stage. Over to you, Alex.
Well, thank you very much. We have the mic working. So it will come as no surprise to the audience that we know the BPO sector is very well embedded in the Latin American and Caribbean region. We heard Prime Minister Holness talk about Jamaica being the largest country, English-speaking country in the Caribbean for the sector, estimated 60,000 workers. But there's hundreds of thousands of people working in this sector across many countries in the region, and that's in many different types of services along the value chain. But like any industry, the BPO industry has faced massive transformation in recent years, most notably with COVID-19, the trends that have been accelerated there, whether it be remote work and also sort of reconsiderations of business climate and operations, but equally technological innovation and many other things that have had a massive impact. But you're not here to hear from me about the BPO industry. I'm very glad to be joined by a set of industry experts with many, many years of experience and also practitioners that we can really dig a bit deeper into what's happening in the BPO space across this region. I'm going to try and put it into three main buckets. Firstly, giving yourself a bit of an overview of what's happening in the industry. Then we'll look a little bit more into technology use for process improvement, looking at AI and automation. Then we'll, of course, discuss talent, which is on the mind of many of the businesses, I'm sure, in this room, and also governments, as we've heard earlier. And then finally, also talking a little bit about investment promotion and business opportunities within this sector. So let's jump into things, and I think we need an overview to get us started. So, Fabian, I'm going to come to you first. What would you say have been some of the most defining changes in the BPO industry since the pandemic?
Thank you, Alex. Can you guys hear me well? Yeah. No, and thank you also for the bank for the invitation. I'm super happy to be here. I think in general, after the pandemic, a lot of the trends that we were seeing just accelerated. My perspective comes more from supporting North America out of Latin America. And definitely, before the pandemic, we were seeing a lot of interest in the nearshore trend because of the time zone proximity and the cultural affinity with the US market. Of course, the cost optimization was already something important that companies were considering. But definitely with the pandemic and with the remote workforce becoming the new norm, definitely we have seen a huge opening from C-level executives across all functions, from the functions that were more traditionally already being outsourced, such as maybe call center, customer service, and IT, but also for higher value functions such as finance and accounting, or revenue cycle management in healthcare, or financial services in fintech, that basically people started saying, okay, it's the same for me to have the employees in New York or in Miami than to have them in Bogota or San Jose, Costa Rica, or Mexico City. So definitely it just, the demand for nearshoring exploded, even though that it was already there. The other thing that we're seeing a lot, especially now with the economic uncertainty across the world, is that definitely the cost optimization has become an even bigger pain point for companies. At the same time, the shortages continue, even if unemployment is expected to go up when it comes to these type of services and digital transformation and IT. Definitely, there's still shortage of talent everywhere, including the US. So both the shortage of talent and the need to optimize cost is driving an even higher need to make a change. And at the same time, I think companies are realizing, and I think the panel from Globant and Google SAP was a great panel. Digital transformation is no longer a nice to have. I think everyone is doing some type of digital transformation in a way. But at the same time, companies, they cannot be experts at everything. They need to develop a partner ecosystem that can collaborate. And that's why we're seeing a big integration between the provision of services and the provision of talent and the integration of those services with automation and digital transformation. Companies are definitely struggling on trying to do those changes on their own. So definitely, every client that we talk to that is interested in BPO, it's at the same time asking us, how are you going to help me improve my processes? How are you going to bring automation? So, I think in a nutshell, those are some of the highlights that we're seeing.
Thank you, Fabiana. We've heard some key points there: talent, cost optimization, and digital transformation. We heard in the first panel today that does not happen overnight. That's a long-term process. Anupam, let me bring you in here. Is that a fair characterization of what's happened in the BPO industry since the pandemic? And maybe more specifically on the talent point, given remote work, has the location of the talent you're using in your operations maybe become less important?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to acknowledge it's such a pleasure to be here. Jamaica is like second home to me. I've been coming here since 2007 when the industry here hardly had 7,000 to 8,000 people. And we laid the roadmap along with JAMPRO to build a solid, high-scale, sustainable industry with 50,000 plus, and obviously Jamaica is there. Jamaica and Costa Rica I would consider as two role models who have very sustainably grown the industry, the services industry, focusing on the core talent and positioning, and using the investment promotion agency to enable that, along with, of course, all the ecosystem partners. To your point about location, right, and what changed during COVID, COVID actually really, on one hand, hyper-accelerated the services industry. On the other hand, it changed the fundamental dynamics. By that, what I mean is actually location almost became irrelevant. That doesn't mean that location is not important. All that means is today, with hybrid work, digital technologies, automation, and of course now, generative AI, location and costs are less significant than it used to be before. And that's because the future of work, how work gets done and where it gets done, has changed. So locations of the future who grow will have to take that into account when they train their people, when they build their facilities, when they build their policies, and how they position themselves within the digital services economy. So all of these elements, cost optimization, automation, AI, innovation, these all have to be bundled together. And it's not just going to be about, okay, we're the best location or the lowest cost location. So that's where the dynamics have shifted.
Thank you very much, Anupam. Now let's bring in some of the other panelists. Yoni, we've heard a little bit about the digitalization. We've heard about automation. You're obviously well known in the BPO space, both in Jamaica and across the many countries you operate in. I wonder whether you can just explore a little bit about the greatest business opportunities in the BPO sector from some of these developments we've just heard about.
Sure. When I look at what has taken place over the years and what the biggest benefits are of this industry, and particularly our business, is it comes back to our people, right? Technology has evolved. The evolution of technology has not just come up since November of last year. It is something that has continually evolving over the years. And we've seen where it has made people more efficient from a service delivery perspective, from a training perspective, from a recruitment perspective, from a data analytics perspective. But at the end of the day, and every market that we operate in today, it really comes back to our people and our team members. I know we have many of the ITEL team leaders and team members here today. Just want to acknowledge you. And it is you guys across all of the countries. You saw the video earlier. And I love when they play that video, because that video really shows the diversity of the Caribbean and Latin American region, which is what we're really here talking about. Because I had individuals from here in Jamaica, from St. Lucia, from Guyana, and from Colombia, and from Honduras, right? And that's really what this region is all about, is the diversity of the location, the diversity of the people, and the closeness to the largest market where business is coming from in North America.
Well, thank you very much for that, Yoni. Let's get a bit provocative in this conversation. I'm seeing Leslie at the end there with his smiling face. We've talked a lot about AI a little bit, or we've mentioned AI, we've mentioned automation. Yoni's just said that people are incredibly important. We heard the Prime Minister this morning saying it's all well and good what AI can do, but you need the people to be able to operate it. You need those skills. Leslie, maybe you have a bit more of a provocative view. What do you think generative AI, maybe specifically, but also generally automation, will mean for the BPO sector? Is there a threat there?
So Alex, that's a terrific question, and Yoni, great points. I mean, I'm a Caribbean boy at heart, and by the end of this conversation, I'll probably be the least favorite Caribbean boy in the room. And I believe in our people, and I believe in the creativity of us here. But generative AI is actually, when you thought about AI a couple of years ago, AI was replacing typically low-level skills, the ability to make a decision about something, right? Yes or no. Generative AI is actually replacing creatives. So I was at a conference last week, and this lady was complaining to me that she's a perfumer. She makes perfumes, and AI is impacting her, much less like the typical roles that we do in the BPO services. So the front office stuff, in my opinion, is dead. It's gone. So Mariana earlier was talking about chatbots, for example. Chatbots are going to be smarter than us. They're going to be faster than us. They're not going to have bad days. And the face of BPO as we know it today will be significantly different in, I think, months from now.
Well, thank you, Leslie. Anupam, please come in.
Yeah, I'll be the disruptor on this panel, maybe even if we go off script a bit. So I agree and don't agree with what he said. I think this industry has to learn to work with AI. And there's a very specific example. There's companies working on those kinds of applications that will leverage generative AI within the contact center environment, within the software development environment, within managed services of infrastructure and data center, in all of those sectors to make the work of the agents, developers, the ops people more efficient, more high value added. By the way, I love the new slogan with Jamaica, upsource. That's what we should be thinking about, not outsource, upsource, going up the value chain. And simply put, generative AI in real time can feed the agents information about the caller, not just about his demographics, which scripted stuff can already do, but real time, the conversation context, and feed the agent information on how to guide that conversation, either in resolving the problem or upselling something based on that conversation, because it's real-time intelligence, right? So it will, in many ways, change the services industry. It definitely will, and it may impact in the short term the demand for large-scale talent in certain sectors, but eventually, it's going to actually hyper-accelerate this. And the companies that will succeed are the ones that leverage it, embed it within their services stack.
Let's stay on generative AI, because I saw some nodding from the other panelists. Fabiano, Yoni, do you want to come in here?
Well, you know, as Anand said, I agree and I disagree with you, right? There's a lot of hype. There's a lot of hype as to what it can do. There's a lot of hype of what it will do. But I still think that today, and from our perspective, by no means is it a threat. It's an opportunity, right? And that's where I agree and I disagree, right? There's situations where, and I just came back from sitting with one of our clients, and I sat on a panel yesterday with one of our top 10 clients. They're, you know, on the US stock exchange, about a $50 billion market cap. And they use chatbots, right? And we provide services in all disciplines of voice, email, and chat. And I feel that, you know, they use chatbots. They probably take about 20% of the chats. You know, it has its issues. It'll continue to learn, right? And probably eventually provide a better service. But at the end of the day, as to what Anand is saying, is you use these technologies to train your agents faster. Let's think about for our industry perspective. We have agents that sit in a classroom from 2 to 4 weeks. That drives a cost on our end. That drives a cost on the client's end, and that makes it that much more difficult and harder for someone to actually get into the job. So if we were to take AI and use that to train somebody in 5 days, let's say, right? Because they have that system, they can go on, the AI is in their ear or on their screen, helping them to move through the knowledge system. You're now supporting their customers faster. You're able to generate revenue faster. You're able to reduce your costs. You're more efficient. The customer is happy. So I take the point of view that while AI will continue to learn, I don't see AI as a threat. I see it as an opportunity to bolster our operations and to bolster the needs of our clients. And at the end of the day, they're customers. Because if our clients don't have customers, we don't have a business. And that's when AI takes over the purchasing power of the customer, then I'll start to be afraid.
And you know, I think I couldn't agree more. What we're seeing is, and we're of course big proponents of intelligent automation, we're doing very sophisticated things, combining RPA and robots that we have been doing for over 5 years now with generative AI, and really combining RPA with ChatGPT to even make more human responses to the things that we were already doing with robots. But the reality is that it's starting with the essence of understanding business processes and what you're trying to do with the technology, right? Like that takes humans to come up with the why and the solution. Like for example, in our intelligent automation practice, there's different skills, and typically the RPA development skills or the RPA developers struggle to really understand the essence of what the client is trying to get out of the technology. So the soft skills and the business analysis skills and the architecture skills are still so important to making sure that you are designing the right automation. And of course, we're trying to achieve as much end-to-end automation, but the reality is that end-to-end automation in a full department, it's honestly like almost impossible. And you know, we have this funny story. One of the clients that we are, you know, recently helping with this testing of generative AI, because, you know, to be completely honest, it's still very early. We're struggling a little bit with the go-live production of the robot and the results that they were expecting. So I was actually joking with Leslie, like, tell a robot to have a conversation with the customer on why the chatbot is not working as they expect, right? Like, I think at the end, we're a people business, people buy from people, and especially in the services sector, I think clients appreciate you know, the communication, the soft skills, the flexibility, even more than, of course, the technology. So I think both things are gonna continue working really closely together. And also, different companies are at different levels of maturity, right? Like we have companies that may be already embarking generative AI, but then we have companies that haven't even done the basics. So I think what's gonna keep happening is some are gonna continue evolving faster and the movement of headcount is gonna happen faster, but then the next company is gonna come, the next client is gonna come, and we're gonna have to go through the whole cycle again, so.
I'm just going to give Leslie a chance to respond because clearly most of the panel disagree with you to some extent. Leslie, what would you say to that?
So great points, and I'm not going to discount the need for soft skills. We all need to be better human beings, but for example, I have a very low emotional intelligence, and when someone told me that, I told him I didn't care, but that's okay. But I've now trained my AI to be emotionally intelligent. So when I respond to emails, right, it generates 80% of it. It's nurturing, it's caring, it's helpful. When my default manner, my DNA, doesn't allow me to be those things. So I agree, like absolutely to be a better human being. But AI is now being able to detect that and replicate it in language and soon to be in voice. So it's really a difficult space. I agree in terms of it could be a threat, but I think it's also absolutely an opportunity. And I'm not just talking about this stuff, guys. So what happened during COVID is we went into lockdown and I had massive performance problems on my team. So everybody, performance just dipped off. So I had a couple choices at that point in time. Do I get rid of everybody? Do I sack everybody? Do I beat people into submission? Or do I find better, faster ways for them to work? So when we went on lockdown, I started to develop little AI that would just do one task, just one simple task. And you could think about any examples all over the place where AI does one simple task. But at the same time, as an organization, we were growing up and we were starting to build out our processes. Now that we had our processes and we had our tasks, I started to connect all of my tasks together automatically. And I have now fully autonomous processes. Now, if you think about a performance coach, if you speak to a performance coach, what do they tell you to do? Take 3 or 5 to 8 tasks every single day, allocate 1 hour. So typically, a knowledge worker does 9,600 tasks by the end of the day. My robots do 10,000 tasks per day. I've added 365 people to my staff without an extra dollar on payroll. I have robots that create robots now. I'm scared, guys. I'm scared. I was at a conference last week, and I was super excited. There's a professor of medicine at Yale, and I'd love to get my boys to do medicine at Yale. And then I stopped, and I said, like, doctors are going to be automated. I'll probably send him to be a plumber because he's going to make more money plumbing. Because you can't automate plumbers just yet.
Well, thanks, Leslie. I just wanted to give you a chance to respond, given that we had some debate going on
You
there.
can have this debate going back and forth all
Yeah,
afternoon.
absolutely. I know we're about halfway through, and we could spend the next 25 minutes just talking about this. But let's move on maybe to speak more specifically about investment promotion within this sector. And Anupam, let me come to you here. And I suppose, or more broadly actually, about competitiveness in the industry. What would you say are some of the most critical actions that industry stakeholders in this region can take to ensure they remain competitive in this industry? We've heard about the potential from generative AI. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so all of what we've talked about feeds into that question, or the response to that question, which is, first of all, the basic reason for outsourcing is that enterprises either don't have the skills to do that task themselves, or it's too expensive for them to do it, or it's non-core. They don't want to do it because it's non-core to their business. Those are the three major reasons why companies outsource. And as a destination that's trying to promote services, that's what you need to target. Now, technology and the disruption caused by it is not new. We've seen this story before. We had IVRs, and they said, oh, contact center industry is going to be wiped out. Guess what? It actually grew. 5 years ago, I was speaking at another one of these conferences when RPA was the case. And again, the same fear. RPA is going to take away the jobs, contact centers will go away, agents will be obsolete. It's grown by over 50%, the industry, globally, and specifically here in the region, it's even grown by more than 50% since those 5 years ago. So the fact is that as locations look to develop the investment promotion strategies to become that hub for services, they have to show how, A, they can provide the right talent. Talent is number one. The quality of the talent, the depth of the talent, attrition rates locally, also how they align that talent to the markets that they're serving, or the sectors or the industries that they're serving. Then they have to look at the business ecosystem, which is how conducive is it to do business. And I was really happy to hear Minister Hill talk about cybersecurity being a big focus, because if you ask me, that is the biggest threat to this industry. It's not automation or AI, it's cybersecurity. Because if you have a major breach, your business and your confidence in your customers can be wiped out. So for a country to promote, they have to provide ironclad cybersecurity provisions, data privacy laws, and so on and so forth. Yeah, and third is really about recognizing that, yes, there's a lot of competition. You know, we talked about Jamaica, Costa Rica, and a few others, but there's, just in this region, 30+ countries vying for almost the same pie, right? So specialization, differentiation, pick your strengths and focus on that. At the same time, factor in what your local population and their aspirations and their talent aligns with. So align your promotion strategy, your sector development plans, and your talent development plans to that. And every location may have a different set of differentiators, so focus on that. There's no one magic one, but those are the three factors I would recommend.
Well, thank you very much for that, Anupam. Johnny, I want to bring you in here. Talent was mentioned as a critical point. How do you effectively scale talent then as a country? I know you're operating in 7 countries across the region, I believe. So I guess, how can you effectively scale that talent? Are there any maybe case studies or points you want to share from some of the markets you're operating in?
Well, you know, scaling talent, I think, is obviously necessary, not only in our industry, but in many other industries in the countries we operate in. But I really think the model that should be followed is one of which we've seen here in Jamaica, right? And in particularly, the global services sector project that is the 50 million US that the government borrowed from the IDB to upskill and continue to develop this industry as well as we say, upskill, the technology industry, the animation industry, the knowledge services with, legal services and finance and accounting and HR outsourcing. Those are the areas and kind of the project I would say is one that's been very successful for Jamaica, right? When you look at the development of this industry, one of our shortcomings has been the development of middle and upper management, right? The industry has scaled so fast that you've pushed people into roles without supporting them and giving them the development needs necessary to be successful in those roles. And everybody wants to see and understand what that career progression is for them. Nobody wants to, necessarily be a frontline agent for their entire career. So this project has worked amongst all of the BPO sector and worked with an accreditation program through the GSS Council to put them through an 18-month program to bring them up to the next level. And we've seen a lot of graduates come out of that. You also have to continue to feed the pipeline of the foundational agents, which, that sector program has worked with HART and the rest of the operators in Jamaica to continue to fulfill that funnel because there's a constant need. And then thereafter is looking at, the software development skills, because that's where I think from the perspective of whether it be software development, through machine learning, through artificial intelligence, through analytics, that's another shortcoming that we have in Jamaica. Whereas if we can continue to grow that, we'll see the current mix of business being 70% customer care and 30% knowledge services, growing that to 40-45% and really seeing our industry, catapult to the next level. And, we've had discussions, I see and hear this happening in Guatemala. I see it starting to happen in Honduras where we are. There's been discussions about how to do this in Guyana as well as in St. Lucia and other areas, because I think that is how we can continue to develop the entire region, is following that model, because it's been hugely successful here in Jamaica.
Thank you very much for that, Yoni. Fabianos.
Yeah, I had a couple of comments to add. I think, in general, one of the things that we should all be more open in the region is the collaboration between countries, right? Like, I feel that I have seen a lot in the last couple of years, the relationship between the trade promotion agencies is changing to be much more open. Like, for example, in our case, right, like we opened our first nearshore center in Colombia back in 2009, 2010, and then more recently in Colombia 2 years ago. Sorry, Costa Rica, then Colombia. And part of our challenge has been, okay, Colombia is a great proven success with shared services that are captive, but how do we get our customers to trust us to put their operations in Colombia instead of Costa Rica? A lot of the value has been proving that the maturity of our management and mid-level management and shared services maturity of our people in Costa Rica, it's actually setting up also the operations and bringing those best practices into Colombia. And I think, for example, countries like Jamaica that are trying to scale in their higher value services, collaborating with other sectors that have more experience in those areas could be a great way. Because at the end, actually for us and for Costa Rica has actually been positive. We have been able to close more business now that we have a hybrid solution with both markets. They kind of like the sophistication of one country with the scale and talent of the other country and cross-pollinating both together. So I think that's one thing that I would take from the discussion. And then definitely English continues to be a key area that every country needs to focus. Thankfully, that's not, the case of Jamaica, but Colombia, Mexico, Panama, like really to scale the sizes of the opportunities, I think that continues to be a big area of opportunity.
I think that's an interesting point, the distributed workforce using the remote model across the region. And I guess that comes back to what you said right at the start of the conversation about not that locations are relevant, but it's become less important. I wonder, do you want to build on Fabiana's points at all?
Yeah, I do. And again, we talked about, I think Anand talked about hybrid work in this previous session, right? And again, that's changed the game. And it is connected with everything. So when our clients are looking for delivery centers in the region or for outsourcing companies in the region, they want to know, okay, how easy is it to do hybrid work in that particular geography, right? And that's because globally they have those policies and they want to make sure it's similar in other locations. And also we never know when there might be another crisis. So they don't want to be locked into a location that because of maybe data security issues or regulatory issues, we can't get the work done from home when the need is there. So that is very, very important, and it's changing the way, again, that services are being delivered, and again, locations making sure that they will enable it, or if there's another disruption, they can seamlessly move the work to remote as needed.
Sure. Yoni, any points? Do you agree with that in the sense of using that distributed hybrid model across the countries you're operating in?
Yeah, I mean, it's effectively what we've established, but through the pandemic, we were obviously predominantly at home. Now we have kind of switched that somewhat and back into about 10 to 15% work at home, with the majority in the office. We feel that there is a place for it. We feel that there is certainly a benefit to it. When you look at evening shifts, late night shifts, overnight shifts, there's a benefit there. But at the end of the day, when you look at the age group that you're employing, the ability to have them in center, not only for metrics and management, but for the training and the collaboration and the unity of a team, and for multiple other reasons with consistency of utilities and telecommunications, that distributed model works best, very hybrid in a sense of kind of the 70-30, 85-15, that type of realm.
Leslie, I want to come to you. We mentioned RPA earlier in our discussion, but didn't really double click and focus a little bit on that. I suppose building on the discussion we've had about talent, is there an effective way of how you train people to use RPA effectively? What would you say about training those essential skills in using those automation technologies?
So RPA is still fairly heavy in terms of like coding skills, programming skills. I'm not going to use the C word again. A couple of people have used it, ChatGPT. But now that is even coding for you, right? So even that barrier to entry to RPA is going to shrink. The other thing is what RPA will eventually be when you look at AI is you give it an input, you give it an output, and it will produce the workflow eventually. So that barrier to get in there will be completely different. But I wanted to double back and touch on something. So I really applaud the event here, and it's great to see, I consider Latin Americans my brothers and sisters as well. We live the same way, we live the same lives. We just have a slight difference in language barrier. But and everything is relative in life, right? So I was in China a couple of years ago before the whole world went on lockdown. And I was, the guy, my tour guide was asking me about what we do, right? So I said, I do a little bit of AI. He's like, oh, China's getting serious about AI. I was like, well, what does serious mean? He's like, we're building a city. We're building a whole city for AI. And a city in China is 10 million people, 30 million people. When they have a problem, they throw thousands of PhDs behind the problem. So we have loans, we have initiatives, we have collaboration, because the bigger picture is, guys, we have to play on a global scale.
Thank you very much for touching on that. Fabiana, what about RPA and using that in operations? How do you effectively skill up the workforce to use it? And I mean, you talked about the issue of having the skills to actually manage the processes, the migration to the outsourcing services. Can you talk a little bit to that?
Yeah. So in the case of RPA, definitely we're seeing a huge adoption, but at the end, the big issue is that the majority of the companies are not scaling their RPA and intelligent automation programs, right? So I think we were talking a little bit about, okay, what does it take to successfully scale RPA? I think definitely starting with the end goal in mind, like what are you really trying to accomplish? Have a more open view of the business case of automation beyond cost savings. I think, Johnny was talking a little bit about how this is gonna help you get better customer satisfaction, improve your revenue cycle. There's a lot of intangible, not related to cost savings benefits that I think a lot of companies are not necessarily incorporating in the business case. So I think that's huge, the why. Then I think in general, really seeing RPA not as a point solution, but as a technology that you can implement broadly and really have a good approach in terms of assessing, identifying, prioritizing, and quantifying the impact of RPA to really make it a multi-year program. Because as we were saying, it's always evolving. You are never going to be done with your automation program. So making sure that you are not starting as aggressive, but at the same time, you're also having a multi-year plan. It's a key portion for it. And I think at the end, it's also an education to customers. I feel that a lot of our customers are saying, yes, I want automation from you guys, but we end up doing the lift and shift, and we start pushing for why haven't we, because at the end, as a BPO provider, you can just do what you can do. From a security perspective, if your clients don't allow you to start implementing robots, there's so much you can do. So I think there's also more openness from the clients to trust their providers to really being a more strategic partner. But of course, in order to get the trust, you need to actually have the capabilities. So I think that's another thing, everyone needs to get very honest in terms of what their true capabilities are and the integration of services with automation.
Thank you very much for that. So we've touched on generative AI, tick, RPA, tick, some of the biggest technologies that are transformative for the industry. And obviously talked a lot about what's happening in the Latin American Caribbean region, but equally, as the panel shows, ever evolving, what's happening in other parts of the world is also something we need to take heed of. And I wonder, Anupam, to you, what should the region be looking at in terms of what's happening in the BPO sector in other parts of the world? Are there developments there that they can learn maybe something from that, or maybe there's something being done here that's particularly special?
So first of all, after COVID, nearshoring, which earlier used to be, okay, why nearshore? We had to make a business case to clients. Now it's mainstream. Nearshoring is no longer an option. They just have to figure out where and what kind of process to do in that nearshore location. So I think the nearshore regions have certainly, grown and capitalized on the opportunities, but there's a lot going on globally, and that's related to all of what we talked about. One is technology, use of platforms. All of this, of course, means that you're decoupling the human component from the actual task being performed, which in turn drives more efficiencies, optimization, lower costs, lower errors, and so on and so forth. But I think the point that many of the BPOs and locations this region can take from other larger locations like India and Philippines is that there's a lot of verticalization happening in the BPO sector, meaning, again, as you gain some maturity in your business, you have to specialize in certain industries and then double down on that in terms of building, custom workflows, hiring talent that understands the value chain in each of those industries. The big growth industries right now are healthcare, financial services, insurance, manufacturing. So look at some of those sectors and see, where your services could be best aligned. The other thing that I think the global BPO industry is seeing is that in terms of the pricing models, where they're shifting from traditional transactional or FTE to more of an outcome-linked pricing model. And that's where you're taking on some of the risks. Now again, that's not practical for smaller companies, but as you mature and grow, you should be able to, offer these more innovative outcome-linked or gain share-based pricing models. And those are some of the ways you can differentiate and continue to grow the market share for yourself.
Thank you for that, Anupam. Yoni, what about you? What are you looking at in other parts of the world? We heard about India and Philippines, two major BPO markets. Is there anything that stands out to you that this region can learn from there?
Well, so I think, Anupam made on a great point at the end of being outcome-based, right? We've seen evolution of industry really starting in India and Philippines coming into play. The pandemic really changed a lot of that with how they treated lockdown. South Africa has come into play as a low-cost destination, and then you have the continued evolution of the nearshore market. But, what we need to look and understand is instead of taking stock on what others are doing, is trying to understand the root problem. If you look at North America, wages have gone up significantly without minimum wage going up. They're continuing to have hundreds of thousands of jobs added every single quarter, or every month rather. And what's that driving is a downward pressure to be able to support customers, and companies continue to look at the nearshore and other regions as a way to support that. And as we continue to grow, I think we should look at that outcome-based support very, very, very hard, right? Right now we're very competitive. This company is offering X to hire employees, and then this company is driving up the price to more to get employees to come and work for you, and this is what this country is doing with incentives to try and drive investment here. I think if we took a step forward and kind of became the leader of it and said, look, we need to kind of go back to where we were. You know, when we first started the business, you know, 60% of wages were outcome-based. And that kind of flipped on the head because of the demand. And I think now, as we look back, and what I say is really a productivity issue, is because there's so much demand for the job, we're doing whatever it takes to get people to want to come and work for you. If we flip that coin again and kind of lead that process, that it's all about outcome. It's all about coming to work. It's all about being productive at work. It's all about surpassing your client KPIs. More demand will come to you, and more demand will stick to you. More employees will want to stay working for you, and you've kind of switched your model from just being on that hamster wheel to focusing on retention and really developing that career path and upskilling them and taking them to the next level.
Thank you. And if you ever wanted to hear an intervention that summarized the title of this panel, Ever Evolving, that is just that. As you say, starting outcome-based, flipping, and then do we need to flip that back? Leslie, I just want to bring you in here. We've heard about verticalization, specialization to specific industries, changing models. Do you have any reflections on what's happening in the global BPO industry and what this region should be focusing on?
Sure. So everything, I agree with everything that you guys said earlier. I know you can tell by now I'm very passionate about the Caribbean. And the jokes, right? So growing up, you put a Jamaican, an American, and a British guy, sorry Alex, in a room, and you know who comes out on top, right? And it's the same throughout, and that's because of this one thing oozing in this entire territory, and that's creativity. And creativity is the pillar for innovation, is the pillar for great decision making. And if we're able to tap into that creativity ultimately, I think we could give them a good fight.
Thank you very much. So we're pretty much coming towards the end of our time. I've been told to save us a couple of minutes as we're running a bit behind. So I'm just going to go along the panel and ask for 2 quick sentences. Let's throw it forward. What should we be looking out for in the BPO industry in the Latin American Caribbean region over the next 10 years? And you, Pam?
Change the mindset from being a people-centric to more of a customer-centric industry, which means even the terminology that we use, BPO, is going away because clients now call their operations digital operations, not business processes, right? Because everything is getting digitalized. So digital process services or something, right? So it's shifting the mindset away from this is a people-centric to this is a combination of people, technology, and process knowledge, which includes the industry knowledge. That's what I would recommend as the major shift that needs to happen to go up that value chain and scale this industry to the next level.
Thank you, Pam. Fabiana?
Yeah, no, I would say definitely, I think the region is going to continue experiencing tremendous growth. I think the opportunities are there for everyone, you know, from the provider side. I think we just need to be ready to absorb the opportunities and, you know, meet the expectations of our customers. And I think that at the end, Latin America, it's never going to be the lowest cost play ever. I think if we want to go that way, we're never going to compete towards Asia. So I think understanding that customers are coming to nearshore because of the higher quality and the flexibility and all of those factors are going to be important to put in, you know, stronger solutions and more, you know, cohesive solutions with analytics and outcome-based performance.
Fantastic. And Yoni?
So just in closing, I want to congratulate Jampro and thank the IDB for putting on this conference. It's the first time in a Caribbean nation, right? So that's huge. That's a big deal. And on Sunday, ITEL is 11 years old, and thank you. You know, we have been a business that is a relationship business driven by people and powered by technology. And I think if we keep along that same path, this region will continue to grow, and the sky is the limit.
Thank you, Yoni. And last, please, Leslie.
Yoni, they say self-praise is no praise, so I'll help you out here. I want to congratulate Yoni for building a brilliant Caribbean business. I think he's done a phenomenal job, guys. 11 years is amazing. In terms of my outlook, I believe we live in a very different world than we live in 6 months ago. And we need to rethink everything. We need to rethink about the value that we bring to the world. We need to rethink about the outcomes that we deliver. And if we do that, and we embrace change, and it's tough, then I think we'll be way better off it. Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you very much to our panel who've given us a suite of insights. I've got lots of amazing notes here that has given me food for thought for things I can write about this industry. Again, a massive thanks to the IDB and JAMPRO for hosting this wonderful event. And thank you very much. Back to the MC.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you. We're going to allow the photos to be taken in the media lounge. Yes, we're going to actually ask all of our speakers, moderators to head to the media lounge. Thank you. Another round of applause for that particular conversation. Alex did such a great job keeping everything on track. And just take a look at this video that will give you a great wrap-up of what we just discussed.
What's going on inside the business process outsourcing industry? It is estimated that 30% of the BPO traditional services workforce will be replaced by AI and robotic process automation. It's a challenge, but it also represents lots of new possibilities for Latin America and the Caribbean. Advancements in digitization and telemedicine, for example, can offer major opportunities in the healthcare segment. To unlock its full potential, LAC needs to upskill talent, improving English proficiency, technical expertise, and soft skills, expand the speed and reliability of the technology infrastructure, and reinforce data security. Let's take advantage of digital opportunities to expand globally.
Takeaways from the conversation that was just had. Number one, cooperation between countries is absolutely paramount, which means we need to be open to partnership. And if we are thinking about scaling, we can't do it alone. Again, there's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We heard another person say that infrastructure, upskilling, progression, it has to be people-centric, driven by programs, graduates, but also ensuring that your managers have mentorship built in them. Language adaptation, it can't just be about skills and infrastructure, but where does language play a part in ensuring that you can scale and actually get into other spaces globally? And I think it was Leslie who really emphasized this point. If we're going to talk about technology and AI and leveraging and playing on a very big global stage, then we simply cannot dibble and dabble. We have to rethink everything that we do, processes, technology, people. We must do it, and we must embrace change. So I want to thank all of our panelists again.